Hey guys, thanks for stopping by Gregsbeerreviews today. Yeah, the old clock says it's 5 o'clock. Beer 30. Let's go see what's in the fridge today. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by Gregsbeerreviews today. Today's beer comes from Evil Twin, my good buddy Jeppy. Yeah, right. I'm not a big fan of this guy. He's arrogant. We'll stop there and be nice about it. Me and him have had a conflict, and now that I hear that he's up in his own brewery, maybe we'll get some things straight, and he'll get some things straight. But I think he's a very arrogant guy who doesn't care less whether you buy his beers or not. That's in my experience. That's why I don't buy his beers anymore. This was sent to me by Rico, my brother in craft beer. And it still has a price tag on the top of this. This bottle costs $10.50. Rather pricey. But it is a 12% Imperial Stout aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. Now that confuses me. Maple syrup bourbon barrels. Now what bourbon has had maple syrup in it before? I'm not aware of any bourbon that's been aged with maple in the barrel. So how they got the maple to the barrels is rather interesting to me. Maybe it was a bourbon barrel, then they put maple syrup in it and let it set, or I don't know how they get a maple bourbon barrel. So I'm kind of an ignorant old country hillbilly. I'm not up into how things are done a lot of times, but should have some sweet maple syrupy notes if they had maple in the barrel. And if it's a bourbon barrel, it should have some bourbon notes. Jeppy, I will give him credit. He does an excellent job on these dark beers. I mean, he does an outstanding world-class job. And he is known as a vagabond brewer, but like I said, I just heard recently, within the last couple of months, that he's going to open up his own brewery and do his beers there. I don't remember where I heard he was going to do that at, but maybe some things will change. He'll get a dating machine and be able to date his beers there where he's brewing them at one location instead of traveling around and having different breweries brew his recipes. So we shall see. And if things change, I may start buying his beers again. But as of right now, unless somebody like Rico or somebody else sends me one of his beers, I am not spending my money on his beers. So we'll see once he gets his brewery up and operational if things change. I had a bad experience on one of the beers, and anybody that follows me knows which one that was. And it was super overcarbonated, and I mentioned it to him, and he was like, "Oh well." So. Oh well, that's what I say. Oh well, I won't spend my money on your beers anymore. Oh well. So, let's see what this one brings to the table. I'm expecting good things from this beer. For $10.50, it ought to be an outstanding A-class world. It ought to be an A-plus beer for that kind of money. And usually, his dark beers, bourbon barrel aged beers are. So. Let's see what this brings to the table. I've not had this one before. So Rico, thanks again, my brother, for all the wonderful beers you do send me, sir. You are outstanding, my friend. Commercial description on this one, it's a 12%er. I don't have the IBUs listed on Rate Beer or Beer Advocate, which are not critical on this style of beer, but we'll look over. Untapped has it at 50 IBUs. So this should be a very tasty beer, guys. Commercial description says Imperial Stout aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels, produced and bottled for Eva Twin at Dark Horse Brewing Company in Marshall, Michigan. So Dark Horse brews some very tasty beers. And like I said, and once he gets his brewery up and operational, maybe he'll brew everything there. I don't know if he's still going to continue to have other places brew some of his recipes or what's going to happen there. So we shall see. Time will tell. I don't think there's anything else we need to talk about. This is a big boy's beer at 12%. So while I get the cap off and tell you the food pairings for this beer, the cuisine is buttery. It doesn't have cuisine. The cheeses are buttery, brie, Gouda, Havarti, Swiss. It goes well with your chocolate dishes. It's a digestive. Meat is beef, smoked meat, game, and grilled meat. 12%. Let's go down the center, guys. Glass water, pint, backer, non-tumbler, snifter, oversized wine glass. I got my favorite snifter today, and he says it can be cellared for long periods. Straight down the center. Hardly any head at all, guys. Hardly any carbonation at all. And I didn't get a big hiss on it, so, which is the exact opposite from the bad one I had. It was way overcarbonated. It kept growing, kept growing, kept growing, and it was everywhere. So, he does a good job on these dark beers. I will give him that. He does a good job. So, no head on this one. Over to the light, there is none. It is pitch black, guys. And like I said, 12%er. This is a big boy's beer. It's a sipper. It's one you should drink at home. Don't try to drink this at a bar or a brew pub unless you have a designated driver, because you might be looking at the long arm of Johnny Law and looking at that flashlight through your car door window over there. You don't want to see that, or you don't want to have an accident and hurt some innocent people or a kid or something, or yourself. So just drink responsibly. That's what I'm going to say about these monster big beers like this. Let's get a nose on it. Oh, that smells so good. Big bourbon notes. Does have a nice sweetness. It's probably from the maple syrup. Big, big, big bourbon notes. And I love that. I love that. Awesome smelling. Rich roasted malt, caramel toffee, hints of some bittersweet chocolate, maybe some dark fruits. But the bourbon is taking up the whole front seat. There's nobody else in the front seat but the bourbon. Smells good, and it does have a nice sweetness to it too. I'm taking this from the maple syrup. Let's dive in. Final beer of the evening for me. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Rico. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is absolutely incredible. I am getting the maple syrup on the taste. That is so delicious, guys. Wow. But at $10.50 a pop, it ought to be. It ought to take you in the back room and do sexual acts to you. $10.50. And of course, there's a lot of other beers that are more pricey than this. And a lot of times they're in a 12 ounce, but a lot of times they're in bombers with wax on them, and they can be $20, $30+ for one of those beers. Wow, that's delicious. So I don't guess $10.50 is too much to pay for a 12% bourbon barrel aged beer. Probably not. So, but just realize, now there's not a lot of people, unless they're into the craft beers and they like this style of beer, that's going to pay that. Your average Budweiser, Miller Coors drinker are not interested in anything like that. Most of them are scared to death of dark beer. Oh my God, I can't drink that. It's like motor oil. You don't know what good beer is. So, this is very tasty, guys. It's very, very, very tasty. And I'm not surprised, because he does a very good job of producing these 12%ers and these bourbon barrel aged beers. And with the maple syrup added to this, a very nice sweetness. This would be a good beer for the weekend to have with your pancakes and maple syrup. Yeah, that'd be a hot tip. Of course, if I drank this on Saturday or Sunday with my pancakes at 12%, I'd probably be back into bed an hour later. So, well, let me sip on it and see where this one ends up, and step out on the deck and finish my Maduro wrap cigar. A nice dark Maduro wrap cigar goes very well with these these dark beers, and especially the bourbon barrel aged versions of these beers. So let me sit on it for a while, let her have a taste or two. If I can pry it out of her hands and what she does, then we'll come back and see where it ends up. Alright guys, I've got a little bit left here. Been sitting on it for about 30 minutes or so. Very tasty beer, guys. This is definitely a big boy's beer. Went very well with the cigar, Maduro wrapped cigar that I was puffing on out on the deck. Very tasty beer. Looked at the bottle when I come back. There is no vintage on it anywhere. I don't know if it's a 2010, 2013, 2016 version of this beer. That's the biggest problem I have with Jeppy and Evil Twin Brewing. They don't date anything at all. We don't have a vintage. In case you wanted to do 2 years side by side or whatever, hopefully he'll get that corrected. If not, I will continue not to buy his beers. So I appreciate Rico spending his hard-earned money for a $10.50 beer and sending it to me, because until he gets his shit corrected, I'm not going to buy any of Jeppy's beers or Evil Twin beers. So he needs to put a vintage on his bottle. That's all we need here. It'd be nice to have the month so we know whether it was done in January of 2016 or November of 2016. But the beer's going to keep. I mean, it's a 12%er. It's going to keep. There's not any coffee in there, not any hops that's going to fade or anything like that. So a great beer to cellar if you want to pick one up and have it now, or and cellar the next one for a year or two, or 12%. It's going to keep for 15 to 20 years even. It's not going to go bad. So I don't know if the maple syrup's going to fade over time or not. I've not tried that. So that's the biggest fuss I've got about him. Not dating anything, and it all depends on where he's having his beers brewed, whether they have some kind of dating machine or not, or he doesn't care, or whatever the excuse may be. I would like to see if this is a 2016 version of this. That would be a little more information, but it still doesn't tell us whether it was done in January or in November of this year. So in case you wanted to do a side-by-side, but a vintage would help. It would help. Let us know it's a 2016 version. And more than likely, he's not going to do another edition of this. And if he does, I mean, he could just as easily use the same label and print that on the bottle somewhere when it was done. So that's my biggest fuss with Jeppy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care whether you buy his beers or not. He's very arrogant, and that's what I don't like about him. So, very tasty beer, though. He does these type of beers very damn well. So, very nice. Rico, thanks again for spending your hard-earned money on this expensive beer and paying to ship it to me for me to review. So, I enjoyed it. It is very tasty, guys. Let's do the final chug here. Awesome. Awesome aromas here. The bourbon is definitely taking up the whole front seat. Nice sweetness from the maple syrup that's in the bourbon barrels. A great beer for the final beer of the evening, which it is for me. This could be your dessert. I mean, if you don't have dessert, or if you're used to having dessert, this could replace that. Or it could go very well with your dessert if you're having some kind of chocolate dish. Wow. Wonderful aroma. Big off-the-chain bourbon notes on this, guys. Wow. So delicious. Very, very delicious, guys. The only thing that's keeping me from giving this a 10 is no vintage on it anywhere. I would like to see them at least put the vintage on it somewhere. 2016 version, 2013 version, 2015, 2014. Whatever year it was produced, in case you wanted to do a side-by-side. Or if you're purchasing it, to let you know it's this year's edition, last year's edition, year before, whatever. So, would like to see that on there. And a lot of the breweries do that. They'll tell you it's a 2016 and they'll have it on the label somewhere. 2016 and 2015, 2014 version. So, would like to see the month, but that's not that critical. But the vintage is. But I would like to know what year this beer was put in the bottle. 12%, not going to go bad. We'll keep for a long, long time. So, just my 2 cents, just me. Just my OCD, guys. I'm not going to be happy till all these breweries put a date on their bottles. And depending on the style, whether it's an IPA or a double IPA or whatever, month, day, and a year would be great. And for this style, the month and the year. We don't need the day, so you know whether it's done at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, or whatever, in case you want to do a vertical side by side. But enough of that. 9 out of 10 for me, guys. Just because it doesn't have a vintage on it. If it had a vintage on it, it'll probably get to 10 for me. So it does not have it on there. 9 for me. Numeric rating on this one, probably a 98. Probably get a 98 if he wasn't such an arrogant asshole. Just me. It's just me, guys. If you say it's a 10 beer, I'm not going to argue with that. It is pretty freaking tasty. It is well done beer. So, over to Beer Advocate, they say 96 world class. Great numbers from those guys. Would not argue with that at all. It is a world class beer. And over to Rate Beer says overall 98 and 81 in the style. I don't know why they have a problem with the style of this. But we have a 98, we have a 96, we got a 98 for me. So definitely an A beer. And for our final check-in, we'll run over to Untapped. Untapped has it at 50 IBUs, 12%, and 4.43. Excellent numbers from them. Definitely an A beer from those guys too. So it's an A beer, guys, most definitely. It's a pricey beer at $10.50 for each bottle. But you got to realize bourbon barrel, especially maple syrup added to it, taking up space in the brewery. It was done at Dark Horse Brewery. They're putting all of his beers in a corner or whatever and aging those before they bottle it. I don't know how long it was in the bourbon barrels, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, a year, or whatever. It takes up space and makes the beer more pricey. So with that being said, it's an awesome beer, guys. It definitely is. Definitely worth picking up. It's a nice dessert beer. A nice beer to share with some friends or family or the other half. Special occasion beer, whatever you want to do with it. I enjoyed it. Very nice, very tasty. Rico, thanks again, my brother. I do hope you're able to come by here. He said something about coming by here in December. He's coming this way. And we're going to do something special if he does happen to be able to come by here. Might even get one of these Utopias off the shelf. And I mentioned that to him. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 different years of Utopias here. We might even do a Utopia review. And maybe we'll talk him into going on camera and we'll do side by side here of what he thinks of it and what I think of it. So hopefully that'll happen. So Rico, I hope you get to come by, and if you do come by, we're going to put you up here because I'm not going to let you leave here if you're drinking a 26 to 28% alcohol beer. I don't want you driving and getting hurt or getting a ticket or anything like that. So Rico, we're looking forward to you coming this direction sometime in December, and I do appreciate everything you sent to me, my brother. So, with that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. If you've had this one from Evil Twin, this is your Michigan Maple Jesus, aged in bourbon barrel, maple bourbon barrel. So, let me know if you've had it, guys, and come on back tomorrow. Let's see what we can dig out of the fridge. See everybody then.